everyone. I think it's time for another garden update. It hasn't been that long, but we're so excited to have a garden back again, and I thought I wanted to share what's happening in the garden. And also, James is going to show how he builds a compost, a worm compost, just from storage bins. Something you can use upcycled material, some empty bins, super easy. We always had a worm bin, a compost bin like that. But when we moved, and because we're going to be gone for a couple of months, we gave it to our neighbor, Susan, who is really enjoying it. So now when we're gardening, it was time to build a new one. We've been composting by bokashi the whole time, and that's been working great. But now when we have a garden, we need a little bit more compost, and also our family eats so much food, and so we're composting really quickly. James is going to show you how to build this. It's a super easy, budget-friendly way to build a compost. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. But anyways, what's going on with the garden? Well, the garden is doing really well. However, we had a lot of rain. I don't know if you probably have seen on the TV that it's been a tremendous amount of rain and a lot of damage. We have been very lucky where we live here in San Diego that we're pretty high up and on the canyon, but we haven't had any damage or any problems like that, except with our lettuce. But once it started raining and it was really, really heavy, what happened was that those tiny little lettuce leaves, the butter lettuce, some of them broke off. I'm hoping they're going to recover, and only time will see. But everything else seems to really enjoy the rain. So we've been having so many oranges and tangerines, which is definitely not something we complain about. I see the apples are coming in, so I think we just need a little bit more sunshine. I haven't started tomatoes yet. I'm very late on the tomatoes, for me at least, but I'm gonna plant them. But it's been fairly cold. Didn't think tomatoes were gonna do so well yet. Anyway, the kale is definitely loving this, the peas, the potatoes. It's growing really, really great. I'm so excited about that. And we do have a lot of mature lettuce who fared really well with the rain. They had no problems with that. But until our garden is 100% in full force, which it's not yet, we are doing a lot of indoor gardening. Yes, we are growing microgreens. We always have grown microgreens and sprouts and stuff like that. But now we really have gone in to grow more microgreens. It's a fast way to get food fast, and these microgreens are super healthy, super nutritional, and they're fast, they grow. So some of them can be ready to harvest in a week. Some of them take a little bit longer depending on the seed. So let's go check out my indoor garden. So this is my indoor garden. So we're growing right now. So microgreens are different from sprouts. People think that they're the same. But microgreens, you actually just eat the green part, the stem and the flower. With sprouts, you grow them usually in a jar and you eat the stems as well. We do sprout as well, but microgreens are just packed with nutrients. This is more nutritional than the actual plant. So we have sunflowers, we have broccoli. Look at this. This is 7 days since I sowed these, and you can see the broccoli grows uber fast, and they are very mild, so the kids really like them. And we just cut off whenever we want some, and we put it on our sandwich and salads and stuff like that. Here we have the sunflowers. They take a little bit longer, but they have been really growing. And then here we have peas, sweet peas. They took a long time, but once they're very sturdy. Now here I actually have kale and I have lettuce. Now they're just gonna be the micro leaves again. But anyway, this is a super easy way. If you wanna grow food fast, if you wanna grow food indoors in small places, this is a really good way of providing food for your family.
Bokashi composting is great, but I love worm composting because it just creates so much richness for the soil. So we're gonna build a worm bin right now, and I'm gonna use the simplest method, which is just to get 2 old plastic bins that you've got sitting around the house and put it together into a worm bin. So you can use different sized bins. I'm using fairly small bins because these are the ones I've got. You'll notice that there's some space between the 2 bins. That's key, because we're going to drill some holes at the bottom so that any extra water can drain out of here. So let's carefully do that now. I use a 1/4 inch drill head. We're going to create about 16 holes here. I'm not sure how flat this is, so I've kind of drilled some holes throughout the bottom. All right, now that I've created the holes, I'm gonna add this coconut coir as the base for really the home for the worms. Now, coconut coir, I really like it because it's this really fine peat mossy material that the worms really love. But you don't have to do this. You can actually use a little bit of soil and some torn up newspaper or cardboard as kind of the base to get started. The way that I created this coconut coir is that I added a ton. It came as a brick, and I added tons of warm water to this. The packaging will tell you how much. And basically it absorbs water like crazy. And then you've got this really nice material here that is great for the worms. And so I'm gonna basically move in a bit of this into the bin and let the worms hop in. So this coconut coir has some extra water in it right now, and so you can actually see it and hear it draining out right now. So I know that the holes are working. In the future, once this kind of dries up, this will also produce liquid from the worms, and that liquid is super rich compost tea that you can also dilute and put into your garden. You can definitely get worms from your local nursery, but you also can just ask around for some friends. If they've got a worm bin, they're probably more than happy to give you a few handfuls of worms. And what's amazing is how fast they multiply. If you start feeding them, they will just produce more and more worms. One of the key tricks is that if you can basically cut up your food, ideally, sometimes I will put it in a food processor, and it is unbelievable how much food these worms can eat if you really, really break it down. You want your worm bin to be damp, moist, but not really wet. And so if it turns out that maybe you accidentally get some rain or something like that where your worm bin gets really wet, you can just put some newspaper in it to absorb the extra liquid so that the worms don't drown, so to speak. You also want to keep it out of the sun because it's really important not to let your worm bin dry out, because that will definitely kill your worms. Worms can be a little finicky, actually. It's really important that you know what you can and can't feed them. Really easy to find that on our website, but in short, they can't do meat, they can't do citrus, they can't do onions and garlic, and they can't do spicy food. But they love just raw fruits, vegetables, and they will consume them faster than you can believe. This is my favorite part. Now we're gonna put the worms in. And there are lots of little red wigglers in here. So we're gonna start to move. Here we go, here we go.
Look at that.
So we're gonna let these guys will naturally kind of dig down. It's a nice, perfect environment for them. So we're gonna let them dig in, and we'll start putting food in tonight. So somebody had asked me if you can put regular worms from your garden in your worm bin. I actually would say you can, but really buying red wigglers from your local nursery is the very best because they consume so much food and multiply so quickly that they're really the most efficient worms for you to have in your worm bin.
Bedding from the bunny that he's no longer using when we clean the cage, and I'm gonna add it to the beds. This is the best fertilizer ever. Bunny spilling is, they are vegetarian, they don't eat meat, they don't have any organism in their poop that can actually kill us, but they are great fertilizer, and you can put them straight into the garden. You cannot do that with other animals, you have to really check that, but as far as I know, bunnies are the one. Yes. Spreading it around, and the bedding and the hay acts like mulch, and you will be surprised how fast it's mulched down because, well, I think we are sort of done with the rain, but this will protect the plants from heat and at the same time give them nutrients. Now, what has not fared really well is the poor rhubarb. It's just not happy. I think it needs a little bit more sun. Added a lot of nutrients from the bunny poop and spillings, hoping that would do it, but it definitely hasn't liked this colder weather and rain. So, but I hope it will recover. You can see some of these leaves. They're starting to recover a little bit, but they kind of bent off. Spinach, on the other hand, doing great. Not a worry in the world and growing very strong. Our broccoli and Cauliflowers are doing great. We even have one. It's like a little Speeding Gonzales, but look how pretty she is. But yeah, broccoli actually doesn't seem to mind the cold weather, and actually I found it grows better in the colder days. Bok choy is going to town. It's growing. It's really like this colder and all this rain. Same thing with the kale.